Hi guys. So yesterday we talked about what cite evidence, it just means say what the proof is of whatever you're saying, and inferencing where you take what you read plus what you know and you get that inference. And the text is just a fancy word for whatever it is that you're reading. So today when we go to learning objective number 2, it says I can analyze multiple sources of the same event or topic, noting important similarities and differences in the point of view they represent. So I kind of broke it down because that's a lot of words that are kind of wonky. So I know that if I analyze something, I'm figuring it out. I know multiple means more than one, and you guys have that in math too, right? So you have those multiples of the numbers when you're doing fractions. So sources just is a fancy word for some different texts. Event or topic is another word for the idea or the main idea. And noting important similarities and differences. How are they the same? How are they the different? So if I gave you an apple and an orange, how are they the same? How are they different? And point of view is just who's telling that story. Is it a first person or is it a third person? So when we talk about first and third person, it's who's telling the story. So if it's first person, I'm telling my story. If it's third person, you or someone else is telling the story. Okay, so we're going to read stories 1 and 2, and we're going to look for the important words for point of view. We're going to see, we're going to figure out from two different, so it looks like two different, right, texts that we're going to be reading. What is that main idea? What's going on? What's happening? How are they the same? How are they different? And we're going to go from there. So, number 1, Evangeline sits at the head of a long oak table. Traditionally, this is where the man of the house ought to sit. But Evangeline, though she considers herself very traditional, is not willing to cede or give up control of the table to her husband, Steve. She sits very straight and surveys the steaming array of dishes with a smile. Chateaubriand, scalloped potatoes, garlic green beans, honey glazed carrots, and an orange and walnut salad. Okay, so we're going to read story 2 and then go back. Each evening, as she prepares for dinner, I think of her beautiful wispy hair and how it glows in the evening light as she takes the place at the head of our dinner table. It has been this way since we married 45 years ago. Never once has she allowed me, or anyone else for that matter, to sit at the head of the table. She is so strong-willed, untraditional, and stubborn, but those qualities are why I love her. Each night she sits down for the first time. I love to see her smile, her first smile, as she looks upon the delicious meal she's prepared. So, when I look at these, I notice right away in story number 2 that it had a lot of I's and me's and we's. That tells me that that's a first person story. So, we're going to look for those words, underline them, and then I'm going to write first next to that story. I think of her beautiful. We got married. Me. I. So I know that one is definitely first person because it uses I. So if I was telling this story, I would say, I love to watch my husband cook dinner as he chops and cooks and dices food. It's wonderful. Something like that. So I've underlined those because those are those keywords. Up here, I don't see any I's at all. So I know at this point it's got to be a third person story. So those keywords for third person is she and her. And that's probably it in this one, but usually then it's like they and him and her, his. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and also we're like talking about her name like this rather than just that person like when it says I. Okay, so we're going to look for Evangeline, we're going to look for she, we're going to look for her, and we're going to put third right here. So here we go. Evangeline. Considers, herself. That way control to her husband. She sits very straight. Okay, so this is what we found. All right, question number 3. What information is presented in both accounts? So letter A says the marriage has between the couple has lasted 45 years. I saw it in 2, but I don't see it in 1. And if I wasn't sure, I would look at this again, both accounts. And both accounts means both stories. It's a fancy little phrase for both stories. I don't see anything about 45 years in both stories. So I'm going to put an X on letter A. Letter B says the wife has prepared a meal for her family. Second passage, it talked about how she prepared it. But this one just says she's looking at the food. So I know that B is out of here. Okay. Letter C says the wife always sits at the head of the table. So I'm going to look at that, and it does talk about that, but we've got one more answer, and it's really important to read all the answers because sometimes they make C look really good, and the answer is D. So let's not get tricked. So let's go to letter D. The couple view themselves as very traditional. So in both stories, let's see. Eveline, though she considers herself traditional, is not willing. He says she is strong-willed, untraditional, and stubborn. So D is out of here. So the only one that's left, it has to be C. And that's how we did this part of it. Tomorrow, we'll be finishing up the questions for this one. So see you then. Bye.